Welcome to IslamicDonut.com.
It's great to be here.
I was going over the material for our discussion today, and I had this kind of light bulb moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Usually when we talk about money, and especially giving money away, we think about it in really rigid terms. It's just a transaction.
It's arithmetic.
Exactly. I have X dollars, I give you Y dollars, now I have X minus Y.
Well,
It's just simple subtraction, right?
Yeah.
My net worth has gone down.
That's the conventional logic, absolutely. It's the logic of a bank statement.
And when we frame charity, we usually see it as a social duty, a horizontal transfer of assets. I have something, you need it, so I give it to you because, it's the right thing to do. Maybe I feel good, maybe I get a little tax break, but the bottom line on my spreadsheet has shrunk.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That is let's call it the secular materialist view of charity. It's a loss of a tangible asset for maybe a gain in social capital or a bit of moral satisfaction.
But the source material we're looking at today, this text on the importance of charity in Islam, it just completely flips that script. It's basically arguing that our math is fundamentally wrong. Broken, even.
It's not even playing the same game.
Right. It suggests that if you're only seeing charity as helping people, you are missing, 90% of what's actually going on under the hood.
I think that's a fair assessment. The source material frames charity, what we call sadaqah, not as just a humanitarian gesture, but as a really sophisticated spiritual technology.
Spiritual technology. I love that. That's the perfect term.
It really is, because it implies a mechanism, a process. It's presented as a tool for protection, a tool for purification, and, most surprisingly, a tool for investment. The core argument is that the act of giving actually transforms the giver far more than it assists the receiver.
And that's really the mission for this conversation today. We're going to try and set aside the greeting card version of charity.
The warm, fuzzy feeling.
The warm, fuzzy feeling, exactly. And instead, we're going to dig into the mechanics of it as they're presented in the Quran and the Hadith. We want to understand why this text sees it as a fundamental pillar of faith and how it claims to operate as, a shield against calamity and a purifier for the soul.
And we have some incredible imagery to work through. I mean, we're going to be talking about seeds that seem to defy the laws of botany, mountains that are grown from a single piece of fruit, and this powerful analogy of water instantly extinguishing fire. It's a very, very rich text.
So let's start at the very beginning, the definition. Because when I hear charity, my mind immediately goes to cash, to wire transfers, donation buckets, that kind of thing. But the source material, it just blows that definition wide open from the start.
It does. It starts by defining charity as one of the most noble and virtuous deeds, which, sounds pretty standard. But then it immediately delinks that virtue from your financial status.
Yeah, this is the first thing that really jumped out at me. The text lists the obvious things, right? Money, food, clothes.
Yeah.
But then the list just keeps going. It adds your time. It adds your skills. It lists your knowledge, giving someone advice.
It expands the definition of asset to include everything that makes you a human being, the intangibles.
And the specific examples are what floored me. The source explicitly says that smiling is an act of charity. Just smiling at someone. It says saying a kind word is charity. And my favorite, removing harm from the way. So if I'm walking down the street and I see a piece of broken glass on the sidewalk and I just kick it into the gutter so no one cuts their foot, the text is saying that's an act of worship.
That is considered sadaqah. And I want you to just pause on that for a second. Think about the implications of a definition that broad. Why would the source material go to such lengths to include things that don't cost a single penny?
Well, on the surface, I guess it's just trying to encourage people to be decent to each other. Be nice.
It's deeper than that, I think. Think about what you could call the rich person's virtue problem. If charity were strictly about giving money, then only the wealthy could really excel in this area. The poor, the people who are struggling, would be spiritually disenfranchised.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They'd be locked out of this entire mechanism of reward and purification we're about to discuss. It would create a kind of spiritual class system.
I'd never thought of it that way. You need capital to be spiritually good.
Exactly. But by defining a smile or a kind word or moving a rock as charity, the source completely democratizes virtue. It's saying that your net worth has no bearing on your moral worth. Do you have a face? You can smile. Do you have a voice? You can speak kindly. Do you have hands? You can remove an obstacle. You have spiritual currency to spend no matter what your bank account looks like.
That levels the playing field entirely. It turns every single human interaction into a potential opportunity for charity.
Precisely. And this leads us to the really big why. Why is this so critical? The source quotes a pivotal hadith a saying of the Prophet Muhammad from the collection of Sahih Muslim. It's number 223, and it says, "Charity is a proof of faith."
Proof. That's such a specific word. It's not a sign of faith or a symptom of faith. It's proof, like evidence in a courtroom.
The Arabic word often used here is burhan, which carries the meaning of clear, decisive, undeniable evidence, like a spotlight cutting through the dark.
Okay, so why is giving, whether it's my money or just a smile, considered proof? What is it proving, and to whom?
Well, let's step back and think about us, about human beings. From a biological and evolutionary perspective, what are we wired to do? We're wired for survival. We are wired to gather resources, to hoard them, to protect our family, to make sure we have enough to get through the winter.
Right, self-preservation.
And money, in our modern world, is the ultimate symbol of that. It represents safety. It's a condensed form of your energy, your time, your labor, your sweat, all converted into a number.
My bank account is basically a record of my life force that I've traded for a sense of security.
That's a great way to put it. So to take that hard-earned security, that condensed life force, and just voluntarily give it away, to hand it to someone else with zero expectation of anything material in return, that is a deeply unnatural act. It cuts against our most basic survival instinct.
I get it now. The friction is the proof.
The friction is the proof. The very fact that you can override that deep-seated biological programming to hoard and protect, it proves that you must believe in something stronger than your biology. It proves you believe in an unseen reward more than you believe in the seen asset in your hand.
That makes so much sense. If I only believe in this material world, giving away my money is just irrational. It's a net loss, period. But if I believe in the framework this text is laying out, it's not a loss at all. It's a transfer.
And that is precisely why it's elevated to an act of worship, or ibadah. It's an act of obedience to God that validates your internal belief. It makes the invisible visible.
The source brings up a verse right after this point that has a real sense of urgency to it. It's from the Quran, chapter 2, verse 254. It almost feels like a warning.
I would call it a strategic advisory, a market tip, if you will. The verse urges believers to donate from what's been provided to them before a certain time comes.
Before there comes a day in which there is no exchange and no friendship and no intercession.
Let's focus on that first part, no exchange.
That phrase really stood out to me. It sounds like a total economic collapse. The end of all markets.
It is the ultimate market closure. The source is reminding you, the reader, that all the forms of currency we rely on right now, our money, our social networks, our ability to call in a favor, that's all temporary currency. It only has value in this specific environment, in this life.
It's like having a pocket full of tokens from arcade. They're incredibly valuable inside that building. You can play games, you can buy prizes, but the second you step outside onto the street,
they're just useless metal slugs.
That's a perfect analogy. And this verse is saying, the arcade is closing, the lights are about to go out. You have a very limited window to go to the prize counter and exchange those tokens for something that has value outside the arcade.
And charity is the exchange bureau.
Wow.
The act of giving now is a strategic move to convert your worldly currency, your tokens, into spiritual currency, good deeds, before that market freezes forever. Because on that day, your money is worthless, your powerful friends can't help you, and no one can intercede on your behalf.
So it reframes charity from just being a nice person to being an intelligent investor. It's strategic asset management.
It is eternal asset management.
This leads us perfectly into the second section of the outline, which the text calls the metaphysics of purification. And I have to say, this is where things get into some really interesting, almost mystical mechanics.
This is a concept that's absolutely central to Islamic spirituality, the idea of tazkiyah, or purification.
So the source makes this bold claim that charity purifies. Now, again, going back to my simple checkbook logic, if I give away money, I have less money. My assets have decreased. But the text is arguing that by giving some away, I am somehow cleaning or improving what's left behind.
Yes. And it's not just a philosophical idea. The source quotes the Quran directly from chapter 9, verse 1 or 3. Take a charity by which you purify them and cause them increase. Notice it says both things. Purify and increase.
Let's break that down. What exactly is being purified here? Is it the person or is it the money itself?
It's both, and they're interconnected. First, let's talk about the soul. The source says charity cleanses the soul from things like greed, selfishness, and attachment to worldly possessions.
So you're saying greed acts like a kind of spiritual grime, like plaque on your heart.
That's a good way to think about it. It's a constriction. Greed, the constant desire for more, it tightens the heart. It makes you anxious, fearful of poverty, suspicious of others. Giving is the opposite motion. It's an act of release. It's an expansion. It literally breaks the grip that materialism has on your soul. It scrubs away that anxiety.
Okay, so that's the psychological or the spiritual side. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the text also talks about purifying the wealth itself, this idea that money can be dirty or clean.
Yes. In the Islamic paradigm, wealth is not always neutral. We live in a messy, complicated world. Maybe you weren't 100% focused for every single minute of your salaried job. Maybe there was a gray area in a business deal you made. Maybe you felt a little bit of arrogance or pride when you looked at your bank account. All of these things can introduce a spiritual impurity into the asset.
So the money sitting in my account might have some, I don't know, let's call it spiritual static on it.
That's a fantastic term for it, spiritual static. And giving a portion of it away in charity acts as a filter. It's like when you prune a tree. You cut away a few branches, which seems like a loss, but the result is that the rest of the tree becomes healthier, stronger, and more fruitful. By giving charity, you remove those impurities, which legitimizes and blesses the wealth that you keep.
There's an analogy in the source here that I really want to spend some time on. It's so powerful. It's from a hadith, number 3973. Charity extinguishes sin as water extinguishes fire.
Yes. This is a very, very precise image.
I want to stop on this because the physics of this analogy are specific. It says water extinguishes fire. It doesn't say sand smothers fire or wind blows out a candle. It specifically uses water.
Right. And think about the physical properties of water when it hits fire. It is the ultimate antagonist. It is total negation. There's no negotiation. The fire doesn't get a chance to argue its case. It just ceases to exist. It's an immediate chemical reaction.
And that's the claim the source is making about how charity deals with our sins. That it's not some long, drawn-out process of scrubbing away a stain for years. It's an instantaneous neutralization.
Exactly. The source is saying that charity operates with that same level of immediate physical certainty. You commit a sin. That's the heat, the flame, the destructive force. You give charity, that's the water, the sizzle you hear. That is the sin being rendered inert, evaporating. It's a mechanism, almost like spiritual physics.
That is an incredibly comforting thought. It turns charity into a practical tool you can use when you inevitably mess up. It's like having a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall of your spiritual house.
And it empowers the believer. You aren't just a passive victim of your own mistakes. You have a tool, a mechanism to actively neutralize them.
But then the text pivots again. It goes from cleaning, which is about neutralizing the bad, to growing, which is about multiplying the good. And this is where we get this incredible visual of the mountain and the date.
Ah, yes. Hadith 25:26. This illustrates the principle of divine magnification.
Walk us through this because the scale here is just, it's mind-boggling.
So the source describes a scenario. A person gives a small amount of charity from a good source, meaning from honestly earned wealth. And the example used to illustrate this small amount is a single date, a piece of fruit.
So we're talking about pennies, basically. Something we would consider tiny, almost insignificant.
To our eyes, yes, absolutely insignificant. But the hadith says that Allah accepts the single date in his right hand. And then, and this is the amazing part, he tends to it. The text uses the analogy of a person raising a foal, a baby horse, or a camel calf.
I love that imagery, tending to it. It's not passive. It implies care, nurturing, personal attention.
Exactly. You don't just throw a seed in the ground and walk away hoping for the best. You water it, you protect it from weeds and pests, you make sure it gets sunlight. The text says God does this with that tiny act of charity. He personally nurtures it. He grows it until
Until that single day becomes greater than a mountain.
greater than a mountain.
That contrast is staggering. Input, one date. Output, something bigger than a mountain.
And it's meant to be staggering. It's meant to shatter our understanding of scale and value. It highlights the fundamental difference between human economics and divine economics. In our world, a date is a date. It has a fixed market price and a fixed caloric value. In the spiritual economy, when invested with the Creator, that same date has infinite growth potential.
So it's effectively saying that the size of your initial donation matters far less than the sincerity of your intention and the purity of the source.
Correct. If the source is good and the intention is pure, the multiplier effect is literally divine.
Speaking of multipliers, let's move into what the outline calls the economics of faith. This is section 3, gratitude and increase. And this is where the math gets even more specific, if you can believe it.
Yes, this brings us to a verse in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 261, the agricultural metaphor.
I'm definitely noticing a theme here. Foals, camels, dates, now seeds. It's all very organic, very rooted in the natural world.
It is. And these metaphors would have resonated deeply with the agrarian society of the time, but they hold up perfectly today because they describe organic exponential growth, which is a universal concept.
So lay out the math in this verse for us.
The verse compares those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah to a single seed. So one seed is planted.
Okay, step one. 1 unit invested.
That one seed grows and produces 7 spikes, or 7 ears of corn.
Step two. Already a 700% return in terms of structure. That's impressive.
But it doesn't stop there. In each of those 7 spikes, there are 100 grains.
Okay, hold on. Let's do that math. One seed becomes 7 spikes times 100 grains per spike. That's 700 grains. A 700 to 1 return.
A minimum 700 to 1 return.
Let's just put that in perspective. If I walk into a modern investment firm today and they tell me, give us $1 and we guarantee you $700 back, I'm not investing. I'm calling the authorities. That's a Ponzi scheme.
In the material world, it absolutely is. It's impossible. It violates the laws of economics, probably thermodynamics too.
But the text isn't presenting this as a flowery metaphor. It's presenting it as a hard metric.
It is. And notice the imagery again. Agriculture. Why a seed? Because a seed's growth is exponential, but it's also hidden. You plant it, and for a while, nothing seems to happen. The real work is going on under the soil, out of sight. The source is suggesting that your charity goes underground into the divine economy, and what eventually shoots up, the 7 ears, the 100 grains, is a yield that makes Silicon Valley venture capital returns look like a rounding error.
And is 700 the cap? Is that the maximum return?
Not at all. The source points out that the verse concludes with the phrase, and Allah multiplies his reward for whom he wills. So 700 isn't the ceiling, it's the floor.
That's just. That's a completely different way of thinking about value. The text also links this increase to the concept of gratitude.
Yes. This is a core principle in Islamic theology. The promise from God is, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. When you give charity, you are performing an act of gratitude. You're acknowledging that the wealth you have wasn't just your own doing. It was a provision from God. And by sharing it, you prove you're grateful.
That's so counterintuitive. We think that hoarding our money shows how much we value it. But this text is saying that giving it away is what shows you value its true source.
Precisely. If you clench your fist and hold on tight to your money out of fear, you're constricting the flow. You're operating from a mindset of scarcity. But if you open your hand to give, you've also, by definition, opened your hand to receive. You're signaling trust and an abundance mindset.
Now I have a strategic question. If this is an investment strategy, is there a best time to buy in? In the stock market, you want to buy low.
Yeah.
Is it better to give when you're older, retired, and have a surplus?
The source addresses this very specifically with Hadith 205:44. And the answer is probably not what most people would expect. It says, the best charity is that which is given when one is rich.
When you're rich, that seems obvious.
But it defines rich in a very particular way. It doesn't mean having millions in the bank. It means when you are healthy, when you yourself have a strong desire for more wealth, when you actively fear poverty, and when you have hopes and dreams for becoming even richer.
Oh, I see. So it means giving when you feel like you need the money the most.
Exactly. It's easy to be generous when you're on your deathbed. The money has lost its utility to you. You can't take it with you anyway. It's easy to give away something you're going to throw out. But to give when you are in the prime of your life, when you're saving for a house or your kids' education or your own retirement, when giving it away creates a genuine pinch.
That's when it hurts. That's when it's a real sacrifice.
And that is precisely why it is the best. Because the level of trust required is at its absolute peak. You are consciously overriding your fear of the future. You are choosing to invest in the spiritual economy over the material one at the very moment when the material pull is strongest.
That really hits home. It's easy to give away the leftovers from the feast. It's much harder to give away a piece of your main course.
And yet, the source connects this exact type of meaningful giving to a promise in the Quran, chapter 16, verse 97, the promise of a good life, or Hayat Tayyiba. And this isn't just about the afterlife. It's a promise of a higher quality of life in this world, too. Contentment, peace, a sense of purpose, and blessings in your affairs.
Which brings us to a section that I think will resonate with just about everyone right now, given how chaotic the world feels. Section 4, the shield protection against calamity.
This is a major shift in the conversation. We're moving from the offensive strategy of gaining rewards to the defensive strategy of preventing harm.
The text literally calls charity a shield. What are we being shielded from?
The source is quite broad. It lists various calamities and hardships. This could mean anything from sickness and accidents to financial troubles and social conflicts.
There's that sense of urgency here again, too. I'm looking at Hadith 115. Give charity without delay, for it stands in the way of calamity.
Stands in the way. Just visualize that for a moment. Picture a calamity, a car accident, a sudden illness, a layoff at work, barreling down the tracks toward you like a freight train.
Okay, I can see that. It's a pretty scary image.
The Hadith is describing charity as a force that literally steps onto those tracks. It intercedes, it puts up a barrier, it absorbs the blow. It is a physical shield between you and oncoming misfortune.
That's an incredibly powerful image. It turns charity from a passive donation into an active force field. But I have to play the skeptic for a second here.
Please, that's what we're here for.
I hear you on the shield concept. It sounds poetic, it sounds beautiful, but let's be real. If my rent is due at the end of the month and I give $500 to charity, that is $500 I no longer have for rent. No amount of spiritual shielding is going to magically put that cash back in my checking account. The source claims charity does not decrease wealth, but my janking app tells me very clearly that it does. 10 minus 5 is 5. How do we reconcile that apparent contradiction?
That is the friction point, isn't it? That's where faith meets the material world. And the source doesn't shy away from that tension. It's asking you implicitly to redefine what wealth truly is.
Okay, how so?
Let's talk about the concept of baraka, or blessing. Let's say you keep that $500 for rent, but the next day your car's transmission blows and it's a $1,200 repair. Were you actually wealthier by keeping the $500?
I see what you're saying. I had the cash, but there was a much larger liability coming my way that wiped it out and then some.
Exactly. The paradigm presented in the source suggests that giving the $500 in charity might have been the very act that prevented the transmission from blowing up in the first place. Or it might prevent the sudden sickness that keeps you out of work for a week, costing you more than you gave. So while the number in your bank account might have dropped temporarily, the overall purchasing power and the retention of your wealth has actually increased because you avoided a bigger loss.
So it's a question of net preservation versus gross numbers. It's not about printing money, it's about loss prevention.
Precisely. The shield isn't a money-making machine, it's an expense-preventing machine. It's the ultimate insurance policy, where the premium is your charity and the coverage is your well-being.
That makes the Prophet's statement from the collection of Muslim, number 25888, charity does not decrease wealth, make a lot more sense. It doesn't decrease the utility or the blessing in the wealth.
And the spiritual accounting, of course, is entirely different and always in the positive.
Speaking of that spiritual accounting, there's a verse in this section that it really stopped me in my tracks. It's about what the source calls the ultimate regret. It's in Quran chapter 63, verse 10.
This is one of the most sobering verses in the entire scripture. It paints a picture of a person at the exact moment of death.
So let's set the scene. The veil between this world and the next is lifting. The reality of what comes after is becoming clear.
And this person, in this state, makes one final request to God. They ask for a brief term of delay. Just a little more time. My Lord, if only you would delay me for a brief term.
Now, if you ask most people what they would do with 5 more minutes of life, they'd say things like, I'd want to say goodbye to my children, or I'd want to tell my spouse I love them one last time, or maybe I'd want to pray.
But this person in the verse is incredibly specific. The reason they want more time is, quote, so I would give charity and be among the righteous.
Why charity? Out of everything they could possibly do, prayer, fasting, seeking forgiveness, why is that the one thing they single out?
The commentary on this, from the source and from classical scholars, suggests it's because in that moment of transition, the truth becomes undeniable. They can see the reality of the spiritual economy. They see the mountains of reward we talked about. They see the shield protecting others from the fire of the hereafter. They realize with horrifying clarity that charity was the single fastest, most effective, highest yield action they could have taken with their worldly resources, and they missed their chance.
It's the ultimate case of hindsight being 20/20. They can finally see the true ROI, and they realize they left a fortune on the table.
That's exactly it. It reveals charity as the most critical missed opportunity from the perspective of eternity.
And that ties right back to that sense of urgency we felt earlier. Give without delay. Because you don't want to be that person begging for 5 more minutes just to write a check you could have written today.
That is the core lesson. Don't wait until you see the proof to act. Act while it is still a matter of faith.
Wow. That definitely puts things in perspective. Okay, let's try to shake off that heavy existential dread for a minute and shift to the psychological aspect. Section 5 discusses the giver versus the receiver.
Right. This is what we can call the paradox of charity.
The conventional logic is simple. The receiver benefits because they get money or resources. The giver experiences a loss. But the source argues the complete opposite. The giver benefits more.
And it's not just in the hereafter. It lists the internal worldly rewards, a sense of satisfaction, happiness, peace of mind. But it goes much deeper than that. The text cites a well-known hadith from Riyadh as-Salihin. The upper hand is better than the lower one.
The upper hand being the hand that gives, and the lower hand being the one that receives.
Yes. But let's analyze what that means psychologically. When you are the upper hand in an interaction, you are in a position of strength. You are in a position of agency. You are the protagonist, the one making a positive change.
It affirms your own capability. Even if you don't have much, the very act of giving something proves to yourself that you have enough. You have a surplus, however small.
Exactly. It is a powerful psychological tool to destroy a scarcity mindset. If you are always asking, always feeling needy, always afraid to give, you are reinforcing a psychology of poverty. You're constantly telling your own subconscious, I don't have enough. By giving even a little, you are sending a powerful message to yourself. I have abundance. I have enough to share.
And there's a challenge layered on top of this as well. The source quotes Quran 3.92, "You will not attain to piety until you spend of that which you love."
This is the ultimate challenge to the ego, to our sense of attachment.
That which you love. That's the key phrase. It's one thing to clean out my closet and give away old clothes I don't wear anymore. It's another thing to give away the loose change that's just weighing down my pocket. But to give away something I genuinely cherish, like my favorite jacket, or a sum of money I was carefully saving for a vacation I really want.
That is the point where the real transformation happens. Because if you can give away something you love, you prove to yourself that your possessions don't own you, you control them.
You're breaking the chains of materialism that are wrapped around your heart.
That's a beautiful way to put it. You are declaring your independence from things.
The source also brings up that powerful loan to God metaphor again here. It's from Quran 2.245. Who is it that would loan Allah a goodly loan so? He may multiply it for him many times over.
This reframes the entire interaction. You are not giving away your money to a poor person and losing it. You are lending your money to the owner of the heavens and the earth.
And you can be pretty sure he's good for it.
He's the ultimate guarantor. The verse continues, and it is Allah who withholds and grants abundance. So you're not just lending to anyone, you are lending directly to the very source of all abundance. It is the safest, most secure investment in existence. It's like a treasury bond that's backed by the creator of gold itself.
The text also mentions something about self-sufficiency in that same section.
Yes, that hadith about the upper hand has a part that says, and he who seeks self-sufficiency will be made self-sufficient by Allah. It implies that the very mindset of giving, of being the upper hand rather than the lower one, actually attracts the means of sufficiency to you. It creates a sort of spiritual gravity of abundance around you.
Moving into section 6, the source gets a little bit technical, but it's an important distinction. It's called intentions and obligations, and it talks about two different types of giving, zakat and sadaqah. We should probably clarify those for anyone listening.
Right, it's a key distinction. Zakat al-Mal is the obligatory annual charity. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, so it's not optional for those who are eligible. It's a set percentage, usually 2.5% of your surplus wealth that's been held for over a year. You can think of it as a mandatory spiritual tax on wealth, designated specifically for the poor and needy.
Okay, so zakat is the requirement. What's sadaqah?
Sadaqah is all the other voluntary charity. It's anything extra you give out of your own kindness and desire to do good. It has no set amount, no set time. It's the smile, the kind word, the extra $50 you give. It's completely voluntary.
But the source notes what it calls a common thread between them.
Yes. The text makes it clear that regardless of whether the giving is wajib, obligatory, or mustahab, recommended, the greater benefit principle we've been discussing applies to both. The purification, the shield, the multiplication, all of it. And the key factor that underpins everything is what the source calls divine awareness.
Yeah, the text keeps repeating that phrase, that Allah is all-hearing and all-knowing.
It's emphasizing a crucial point. You don't need an audience. You don't need a receipt for your good deeds. You don't need your name on a plaque on a wall.
That is a very difficult pill to swallow in the age of social media. We're almost conditioned to want to film ourselves giving a sandwich to a homeless person
Yeah.
so we can post it and get the likes and the validation.
But the source states that good intentions are sufficient because God sees the deeds. In fact, many scholars would argue that the charity given in secret is held in higher esteem, precisely because it removes any doubt about your motive. It protects the dignity of the person receiving it, and it purifies the sincerity of the person giving it. The fact that the all-knowing is aware, that is your ultimate receipt.
So to quickly recap the core tenets from this part of the discussion, the source lists 4 main points. 1. Charity can be done by anyone, at any time, with any amount.
Democratization of virtue.
2. It's an expression of love for God and for His creation.
The vertical and the horizontal dimensions.
3. It makes the world a better, more just, more compassionate place.
The social impact.
And 4. It prepares you for the hereafter.
The eternal investment is a really concise summary of a massive topic. It covers the individual, the social, and the metaphysical all at once.
Now, the source material actually has a frequently asked questions section at the end. Instead of just reading them off, I want to pose these as the kinds of tough questions a listener might have after hearing all of this. Let's try to synthesize what we've talked about.
Great idea. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's say a listener is thinking, look, I'm not a particularly religious person. For me, isn't charity just a social gesture? Isn't it just about being a good citizen and helping people out?
Based on this text, the answer to that would be a firm no. While it absolutely has positive social benefits, that's a secondary effect. Fundamentally, it's presented as a vertical act. It is an act of obedience and worship. It's the proof of faith we talked about. The transaction is ultimately between you and God. The person in need is the vessel through which that transaction takes place, but God is the ultimate recipient and guarantor of the loan.
All right, good answer. Second question.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time talking about purification. How does giving away $20 actually clean me or my money? That sounds a little abstract.
It's a fair question. It cleans you on 2 levels. Internally, it acts as a solvent for the spiritual diseases of greed, stinginess, and excessive attachment. Greed is an attachment disorder, and charity is the therapy that breaks that attachment. Externally, it purifies your wealth by filtering out any of that spiritual static we mentioned, any ambiguity, any doubt, any arrogance associated with how it was earned or held. Remember the water and fire analogy. It's a neutralizing agent for the negative spiritual consequences tied to your wealth.
Okay, third one, and this is a big one. I'm genuinely scared about the future. I need my savings. Does giving charity actually really protect me from worldly hardship? Or is that just a nice thing to believe?
The source material is unequivocal on this point. Yes, it claims that charity actively stands in the way of future misfortune. It acts as a shield. It doesn't mean that believers will never face tests, but it does imply that charity pushes back against a significant amount of calamity that was otherwise heading your way. It buys you a type of safety and security that money sitting in a bank account, which can be wiped out in an instant, simply cannot provide.
And finally, the big paradox. Why should I, the giver, benefit more than the person who is literally getting free money? Why does the giver win in this scenario?
Because the receiver gets a meal that might last a few hours, or rent money that lasts a month. It's a temporary relief for a material problem. The giver, on the other hand, gets a character transformation that lasts a lifetime. They cultivate generosity, empathy, and detachment. And, according to the text, they secure a reward that lasts for eternity. The giver gets the upper hand, not just in that one moment, but as a permanent state of being, a state of spiritual abundance and agency.
It really is a complete holistic system. It manages the psychology of the individual, the sociology of the community, and the theology of the afterlife, all through this one simple-seeming act.
It connects the dots. It connects our material existence with our spiritual reality. It takes money, which is so often a distraction from God, a source of greed and conflict, and it transforms it into a direct path to God.
So as we start to wrap up this conversation, what's the final thought you'd want to leave everyone with today? If they take only one idea away from this whole discussion, what should it be?
I think it has to be the idea of the guaranteed return. We spend so much of our lives, so much mental energy worrying about our investments. We worry about the stock market, the housing market, inflation eating away at our savings. And the truth is, every single investment in this world carries risk. Every single one. You could lose it all tomorrow in a crash.
Absolutely true.
Charity, as it's described in this source, is the only investment where the return is not just high, but it is absolutely guaranteed by the creator of the entire system. You are taking a currency wealth that is fleeting, perishable, and ultimately temporary, and you are converting it into a currency that is eternal. Blessings, protection, forgiveness, and peace. You're not losing assets, you're transferring them from a bank that can fail to a divine treasury that can never, ever run dry.
That's a powerful way to end. You're not spending money, you're converting currency. It's foreign exchange trading for the afterlife.
That's exactly what it is.
And whether that currency is $1 million donation or just a simple smile to a stranger or kicking a piece of glass off the sidewalk, the source reminds us that it is all, in its essence, proof of faith.
Indeed. It is all proof.
Thank you so much for walking us through this text today. It has certainly given me a lot to think about regarding my own habits and how I view that donate button online.
It was my pleasure. It's always beneficial to zoom out and remember the bigger picture behind our actions.
And for everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the true meaning of charity. If you want to see the source material for yourself, or perhaps put some of this wisdom into practice, you can do so.
Until next time, take care.
Visit www.islamicdonate.com.